Kia ora, welcome to the reveal for the Vintage Purls Winter 2025 Yarn Club. This club, just a one-off package. The package is in response to a artwork called Winter by Mikalina Janoszanka. And let's start by having a look at what's in the box, and then I will show you the pattern and talk you through Mikalina Janoszanka's background a little bit. And then I will have a look and see what you can do with this collection if you don't want to knit the pattern that's included. And we'll go from there. Okay, so the box. Sort of typical VP box. You've probably seen these packages, these stickers before if you've had a club before. So inside this one, we have just a little card telling you that your pattern and digital files and stuff are coming and how to contact me if there are any issues. And then inside this, we have some yarn. So there's 40 grams. This is all Tanner Hill 4-ply yarn. There's 40 grams of the darker shade. Then you get 2 shades of blue, grey, and a lovely little lemon pop to bring them all together. So 40, 20, 20, 20, 20, 120 grams of yarn total, 5 different colours, all Tanner Hill. Then you've got some fudge, because what would a VP club be without some fudge? So this is the Finn's fudge in the chocolate salted caramel, which is delicious, but also I chose it because the blue very much works with my theme. Then there's a couple of sachets of soak wash. There's an unscented and a pineapple grove. Again, they kind of go with the colour scheme and the blue and the yellow, or the grey blue. There's 3 postcards or note cards, however you want to look at them. They've got little note cards on the back and they give you the details. So this is the artwork that I'm responding to. This is Winter by Mikalina Janoszanka, and they're just a little bit of fun. You can send notes to your friends, use them like little greeting cards, whatever you wish. And lastly, there is a little envelope in the bottom there, which has some little goodies in it. Get it open. There we go. So in here, first thing is a little pair of snips. So they have a little safety guard, and then they also have a little catch that holds the handles shut. And these are just cute little snips for cutting your yarn on the go. They're hopefully small enough that they'll fit into your nice compact little kit. Useful little extra. If you're like me, you often can't find your scissors when you want them. Nice little tool. Also in here is a little collection of stitch markery things. You get a collection of my favourite plain silver stitch markers. These are basically what I consider the perfect marker. They're seamless, they don't catch on anything. They just slide gloriously from one needle to the next and you keep on trucking. They come on a little safety pin thing. And then I've included this little blue crystal, what I consider a progress marker, or to mark the right side of your work or something similar. So you can pop it in your work when you start knitting for the evening, and then when you stop you can look back and go, oh, that's how much I've done. It's great if you're knitting like stocking stitch and you want a little bit of a motivator. You pop this in, you knit through your tally show for a bit, and then you can look down and go, oh, that's how much I've worked tonight. So that's quite nice, because sometimes if you're knitting something very plain, it's like, this goes on forever and I don't feel like I'm ever making progress. So that's one way to use it. And as I say, also you can use it to say this is the right side of my work, or to somehow jog your memory about something. So it just has a little clip on it, and it's just going to clip into your work. Use it however you wish. You could also clip it onto a zipper or something on a bag to give you a little bit of extra pull, whatever tickles your fancy. It's just stars were a bit of a theme here. And speaking of that, the last thing in this little envelope is a little stone, a grey stone star. I quite like pet stones. My nieces polish stones. They collect stones and then they polish them up and they give them to me on my birthday and Christmas. So I have a lovely collection of polished stones in my house. I have basically they're fancy pet rocks. I quite enjoy them. I quite like a little stone. I don't know why exactly, but I do. But I thought this might be a nice little object. Might just be a nice little object, there's nothing wrong with that. But it might be a nice little object to have to mark a pattern. It can just sit on a pattern, kind of vaguely indicating where you are, and as you work you can just slide it down. It doesn't have to be pulled off and stuck down again. It'd just be something that you use. Or it can just be something that floats around and you can sort of feel it's nice and smooth. Whatever. It's just a nice little pet stone. I think life is better with a few pet stones in it. So that's your little collection of extras out of your envelope. You have your soak, your note cards, your fudge, and of course all of your yarn. So that's what's in your box. But obviously that's not everything, because you also get a pattern and you get a full video tutorial of me taking you through the pattern, showing you how to knit it. So let's have a look at that. That knits into a cowl. A cowl that I've called a Mikalina, because that's the inspiration. She's the inspiration for this work. And if you remember the image, which is going to pop up on the screen here-ish, stars and birds were kind of the main themes there. I've been fairly literal, I'm not going to lie, but this is a nice exercise in a sort of variety of colour work. So you have corrugated rib top and bottom, which is 2 colour knitting, and obviously I've used the yarns in a gradient to give this wonderful bold effect. And that's very straightforward colour work. It's just knit and purl and just 2 colours. Then we have the star sections, which is just, it's effectively fair isle, but not quite. There's a few areas. Well, traditional fair isle I think of is no more than 5 stitches before you change colour, because you really kind of want to avoid floats. And most of the fair isle patterns that I create, I absolutely avoid any need to pin down floats. This is still pretty much fair isle, but it has some slightly longer areas of colour which need to be addressed every now and again. But that's a nice primer before you get into the birds panel. So the birds flying in the sky area. The bird motif is a slight adaptation of a embroidery chart from I think it was D.M.C. I'll put it, it's in the pattern notes, I can't quite remember the top of my head, but a very, very old embroidery chart. We're talking 120-ish odd years, I think, maybe it's a bit older than that, pattern, so that the bird itself is a slight adaptation of that chart, and then obviously I've spaced them out and added a bit of atmosphere to make it look like they're really flying on the wind. So this chart here is stranded. It's still stranded work, but because there are very large areas of single colour, we really have to do quite a bit of work tethering down floats. So if you've never knit in this kind of fashion before, this takes a little bit more patience, a little bit more yarn control, a little bit more tension control than fair isle does. So this is like the little advanced section in this pattern. But this whole pattern is, I think, still achievable for someone who's quite new to colour work. In fact, this could be your first colour work project if you wanted it to be. There is no shaping involved. It's straight up and down. It's knit round and round and round on a 40cm circular, so there's no magic loop to worry about. There's no double point needles, nothing like that. It's just, you literally just focus on the colour work. You focus on the charts and using your colours. So I do think it's a really achievable and possible option for those who haven't done a lot of colour work or haven't done any colour work, because it's a good place to start. And I take you right through it with a full tutorial. She's a lovely, snuggly, warm cowl. She comes up super high. I'm not going to put her on and destroy my hair and rip my earrings out right at the minute, but there's a photo of me in it. I'll get the side right one of these days. Here, so you can see what she's like. So she's lovely and tall. She stays up, keeps your neck warm right up here. There are some instructions for modification in the pattern if that's something you wish to do. But she's very much designed to be a practical, wind cheating, whole neck warming number rather than a more decorative lower slung option. Perfect under your winter coat, especially when the wind is up, to just add another layer of protection against the elements. Obviously, she can be knit in other colours, so you might love this pattern, but you might not love these colours for this pattern. Not a problem. It's a straightforward 5-colour thing. You need a dark background colour, 2 shades of one colour. So let's say you love purples, okay? So you might have a really dark aubergine or a black or something. Then you'll have 2 shades of purple, one lighter than the other. Then you'll have a sort of lighter neutral, so your lightest shade, neutral, and then you'll have some kind of pop. So if you're doing purple, you might have a very pale beige or a pale pink or a cream, and then you need a pop colour, so something that brings it all together. Green is fantastic with purple. Lots of options, but it's really easy to change the colour scheme. It is designed to keep a kind of gradient look. So we sort of go 3 colours, dark, medium, lighter, so 3 shades of the one colour, and then a light neutral, and then a pop. That's kind of the way it works. But yeah, totally easy to change up the colour scheme. The pattern comes with charts that enable you to colour them in to your own taste, as well as obviously the ones that are prescribed for this colour. So lots and lots of options are possible. You certainly don't have to knit it in this colour if this is not your thing. Okay, so let's have a little look at Mikalina Janoszanka and her life and her artwork, and why I chose the work that I did. So Mikalina Janoszanka was born in Rzeszów, Poland in 1889. Her dad died when she was only a couple of months old, so she never really knew him. She appears to have been raised by her mum and her grandma. Does look like her mother remarried at some point, so she had a stepfather in her life as well. Art was clearly very important to the family. Her great-great-grandfather was a known artist, and who was Jan Walensky, and she grew up with his work and also his son's work around her. So, artwork in the family was, and a demonstration of other artists was very, very normal. She was sort of steeped in art, and her grandmother in particular, revered artists, would take her to meet with artists. And one of the families she met when she was quite young, she's about 4 years old, when she met the family of an artist called Jacek Malczewski. And Jacek Malczewski was quite a known artist. He is still a very famous artist in Poland. And it is her relationship with him which has kind of kept some of her records in history with us. She met him when she was very young. The families became quite close and they socialised. She was very good friends with his daughter. And when she was older, she modelled for him. And so she is the basis for a number of characters and a number of his works. And she clearly idolised him. She wrote a book about him. She clearly took lessons that informed her own art from him. He was a big character in her life. Unfortunately, as often happens for women, they're talked about in their relationship to men rather than individually. And she individually was a trained and accomplished artist. It's just that women operating in the time that she couldn't ever reach the heights that men did because the rules just weren't the same. So Mikalina studied art by way of Adrian Baranecki's special courses for women. So at the time she was a young woman, there weren't that many educational opportunities in Poland for women. And Adrian Baranecki devised this school which taught art and literature and history and economics and all sorts of things to provide a sort of tertiary or secondary tertiary space for women to learn in Krakow. So she attended there and learnt art under a number of tutors. And then as the First World War rolled around, and it was obvious that things were getting a little bit difficult in Poland. She opted to go to Vienna and she studied at the Fine Arts Academy there for a couple of years. So she has a really good grounding in art, and she produces a lot of works. Now she does oil paintings. She's also an accomplished author. She's a published author. She writes poetry, all sorts of things. But probably the area that's really stood out, and the work that I've chosen, Winter, is an example of one of these works, is her paintings on glass. And paintings on glass are it's a slightly weird area that I think is sometimes dismissed because it's viewed as women's art. So there's notions of art that's kind of women's art. It's more domestic sphere stuff. You know, women paint still lives and women paint portraits because women aren't allowed to be in society at this time in the same way as men. They aren't given commissions to paint grand historical schemes. You know, the limitations of what a woman artist can paint are very real because of the societal limitations for women. But consequently, male writers often sort of dismiss stuff they consider quite domestic, which is unfortunate, but there we have it. So these paintings on glass are beautiful. I mean, they're beautiful digitally. I can't imagine what they look like in person because, you know, a piece of glass in your hands is not the same as a piece of glass, that you see on screen. And she's painting them on the reverse of the glass. So what we see is the top layer of the image is the first layer she lays down, and then she adds layer upon layer till she gets to the background. And she uses this metallic gold quite a lot in a number of her works, and these very rich colours. Being under glass, it's like amplified. It's quite ethereal, it's vibrant. And I just love her aesthetic. It's kind of it's got a folk vibe about it, but it's also very glam in many respects. Her works are truly, truly beautiful. And I wish we knew more about her, and I think we will in time. Sadly, of course, we always lose a chunk of information because it's not kept at the time. And of course, women are sometimes a little bit harder to trace because, especially through their matrimonial lines, because surnames change with marriage and so on and so forth. I don't believe that Mikalina married. I haven't found any evidence of that. I may be missing something because obviously a lot of writing about her is in Polish and I don't speak Polish. I did do a lot of sort of Google Translate of Polish articles to try and get a little bit more information. And it is quite clear that there just are gaps in our knowledge about her because her information wasn't treasured at the time as being an important thing to keep. But there's certainly documents out there that will come to light, I'm sure, which will aid in a little bit more information. So she clearly lived a life where she was encouraged in her art, which is wonderful. She clearly lived a kind of life where she was surrounded by people who gave her opportunities. There was clearly money enough to give her those opportunities, all those sorts of good things that let you flourish. And both Winter, which I've responded to in spring, in the National Museum in Krakow, other works of hers in other institutions. She, recognising her, as I said, she grew up surrounded by her family's work. She donated the works of her great-great-grandfather to the Krakow Museum as well. So her whole family is quite well represented in museums now. Whether more works come to light, I don't know. I can only hope. It would be lovely to see a few more. So yeah, I was just really intrigued. I love finding an unknown to me female artist from art history. Some of you may know that I have an art history background. That's what I studied at university, but sadly I studied at a time when although we did study women in art, there was this, it was still kind of, it was early days, it's still early days, let's be fair, but there was still a really big focus on great male artists. And it's a very narrow category. And it's not just male artists. You have to be a male artist of a certain race and time, space, money, all sorts of things. But it's lovely when you discover newer artists, and I think the internet gives us that opportunity to discover more and more imagery, especially as museums put digital copies of things in there. Not so much the things that you see on the wall, but the things in the archives. When those things get scanned and then get online and we can discover them, that's fantastic. We're going to find more and more artworks by really, really extraordinary artists that we just have never heard of because they didn't fit the shape of what a great artist was considered to be at their time or in the sort of 100 years after them. So I was, yeah, as I say, another female artist, thrilled to discover, love her work. It really scratches an itch in my kind of the artwork I like. And I think as a child of the sort of later half of the 70s, some of my memories of like the children's books I really enjoyed as a child and some of the kind of aesthetics around me as a child were quite folk art. There was that sort of 70s and almost sort of leftover 60s hippie vibe mixed with 70s folk stuff. And so I love these sorts of images. They hark back to a time which was, I guess, really happy for me, but it's some of the first imagery that I kind of remember really enjoying. So yeah, I love me a bit of glam folk vibe, and that's what I feel like I found in Mikalina's work. So that's a little bit about her. I obviously put some links in the description of this that you can follow through and find some more information and see some more of her artwork and so forth. But let's have a think about what you could do with this club if you didn't want to knit the pattern that I've included with this particular yarn. Maybe let's say you think that's either not for you or you want to do that in a different colorway. What do you do with this yarn if you don't do the Mikalina cowl? Let's find our yarn again. This is our set of 5 colors. What can I do with her? You can do heaps with her for a start. One thing you can do, and I say this every time I put out a set of minis, is that you can use them to knit a yoke of a sweater. So that means you need other yarn to go with it. So you need to go and purchase some kind of color that's going to go with these. Or you can talk to me and I will make you more of any of these particular colors. So if you say, I want this to be my background of my whole sweater, and then I'm going to use these 4 as my yoke, I need, you know, 300, 400, 500 grams, whatever you need of this color, I can do that for you. That's not an issue. Same with any of the other colors. You could say, I want the gray to be my main color, and these will be whatever you like. That's entirely possible to do. You just have to talk to me. But what if you wanted to buy something else, or you had something in stash and you're kind of thinking, what colors would go with this? Well, I'm going to show you just a few. I think there are lots of colors that go with the set, but I'm going to show you a few options that I think worked quite well. So one of the really obvious ones is Nadara. So this is basically a very natural coloured yarn. This is a natural blend of cream and black merino. The other option obviously is just a cream merino, but cream wool. But of course, cream coloured wools, light coloured wools, that light, aren't always that practical. So a little bit of depth in it to take it out being that really clean, crisp whiteness that you'll just get Marmite and tomato sauce on the moment you walk through the kitchen. You could go for something like this. It goes obviously perfectly with everything because it's a very neutral colour. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's like the easy option. But if you like a light coloured base, this is a good option. Another option, which I thought looked really great, was this. This is little moss side, so a kind of olivey green. I think it looks fantastic with the navy. And all the blues, obviously blues and greens, great, and obviously it works with yellow too because blue and yellow, sorry, make green. So a green is a great choice if you had it. So that's the really sort of olivey colour, but in the greens you could also go for, this is Alton Hill, which is a much bluer, brighter green, but again, and this is a very cool palette, so if you like really cool colours, this is a good option there. You like cool, but you like a colour, nothing neutral. That's the way to go. If you want to stick with the blues, but you want to add a little bit more blue, you can go into Kaihiku, which is kind of basically between these two. You are looking at a very blue product now, which may or may not be your vibe. but that's one way to do that. And if you want to throw in something kind of completely different, which I also thought looked quite fun, I think Rowan looks amazing with it. The navy in Rowan, perfect. The yellow in Rowan, lovely. All these colours work really well. So that's another option if you like colourful rather than having a neutral with colour on it. This is a good way to sort of shake it up. So those are some options. There are heaps of others, but those were just like the ones that were really obviously great partners to me. Just drop this on the floor. So that's one option, is to just pad it out with some other yarn. Okay, but let's say you don't want to do that. You don't have anything suitable in stash and you don't want to go and buy anything at the moment. That's not a problem. What else can we do with our colours? All right, so I've got 5 patterns that I've selected from Ravelry, which I think are reasonable options. And I've got 3 patterns that are my patterns that would work really well. So my patterns, number 1, and I recommend this all the time because it's a really bog standard, good, easy to knit Fair Isle hat. This is the Glen 2 pattern and it uses 5-ish colours of yarn. You can do it as a dark background if you want. You can do it as a light background. You can do whatever you want. You won't need more than 20 grams of yarn per colour. And you change the colour and you change the look. So these are both Glen 2 pattern. It's the same pattern in both of them, but obviously different colours, wildly different looks, which is what I love about a Fair Isle hat. You just change the colours and it looks like a completely different hat. So a really good pattern for this. So if you've got this pattern already and you think, oh yeah, I'd love a blue hat, this is the one for you. Here's another option if you want a cowl but you don't want the kind of the bird area, which is a bit more complex. This is a purely Fair Isle cowl. This is Edgedeer, and it has a 1 colour rib top and bottom and then colour work. This is the very basic entry into colour work. Very small repeats, so you don't have to worry about catching down floats at all. It all just flows beautifully. This one uses 4 colours, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 colours. You can absolutely adapt it to use 5. Or you can just select 4 out of this. So you could say, I'm going to do the navy as my rib and the background, and then I'm going to use maybe the bright blue and the pale blue and maybe the yellow, and I'll leave the grey out maybe. Whatever you wish to do, however you wish to do it. So that's a slightly easier option than the Mikalina cowl if you really want to just knock it down to the bare basics colour work. This is the place to be. And then also colour work patterns from me, because you wouldn't expect anything else. This pattern hasn't quite been released yet, but it's coming. This is Pen Colour, which is a hot water bottle cover, and again, it's one that looks amazingly different depending on what you use, and you can use kind of any number of colours. I've knit this in 10 colours. I've knit this in, I think this is about 6. Can certainly be adapted to the 5 here, or you could add 1 more mini. So you could throw on like a pink or something fun to add a bit more brightness and colour. So Pen Colour is, as I say, coming, or you could look for something similar. Hot water bottle covers make great presents. They're great in winter for just, they keep the hot water bottle warmer, and they're a great snuggling up kind of thing when you feel a bit down or aches and pains or whatever it might be, or just to take to bed and keep cozy. So they're a great option. Okay, so that's things from me, but obviously the world is full of wonderful knitting patterns. So let me run through quickly 5 others, as I say, that I found on Ravelry, which I thought would also be quite good. So the first one is called Into the Waves by Greta Menson. So this is another cowl, but this is no colour work. So if you think, I like a cowl, but I don't want to do colour work, but I do want to use all the colours, this I think is perfect. So it's lacy, so it's a feather and fan style lace, which is pretty repetitive and pretty easy. If you've never done lace before, it might be a skill to learn, but it shouldn't be too complex. And then it's a colour interspersed by others. So you can use the navy as the main colour, and then I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I would mirror back that way. So you'd have a line of yellow in the middle and you'd gradate your blues up and down from the center. I think that would look really, really pretty. So that's one option. If again, you like the cowl idea, but you're not ready for color work, or you just can't face that right now, then Into the Waves, I think, is a nice option. Option number 2, if you want to knit some mittens. These are Wishmaker mitts by Erica Huser, I think it's pronounced, and they are almost this colour scheme, not quite, but I loved the blues. I love the fingerless mitts, their colour work. They've got a beautiful dandelion pattern on them. They just really appealed to me. And again, the colours, her colours are slightly different blues, but I can really see how they, especially the blue ones, you might leave out the yellow, but the blue ones and the grey could look really pretty. You could add the yellow in if you wanted to as well. Just another option that kind of fit the aesthetic of this set of colours. Something to think about. Then, if you want a hat, which you might want, Smora by Gudrun Johnson is a colourwork hat, in quite traditional Pharaoh kind of patterns, and there's 2 options. So there's a beret option and then there's a beanie option, so depending on what kind of shape you like. Gudrun's a very experienced pattern maker, so you know you're getting good things. You know, very much the sort of Shetland tradition, a really classic but beautiful hat. She only does it in 2 colours for one of them, or maybe there's a little bit of extra, but you can choose whether you want to do it in 2 or more colours. Again, I think it would look lovely if you sort of gradiated through the blues, whatever. You could make it your own, absolutely. Let's say you're not into cowls and hats and mitts, and again you thought, oh, another project where I had a bit of yarn would be quite fun, but I don't want a jersey, I don't want a sweater. Yonder Window by Casapinka is this fun shawl or scarf, so very wearable under a jacket or something to keep you warm, which she's used a gradient yarn with a solid yarn. I would say go and find yourself a solid colour and then use the yarn colours as your gradient. I think that would look really pretty. It's a very sort of simple, bold, not fussy pattern. It's like, you know, geometric squares. I think it would look lovely. Again, if you worked through the gradient and then you had your little pops of yellow, it would be really pretty on one of the colours we talked about, if you like, or get more of the navy and go from there. So that's an option. And last, but certainly not least, but fun, such fun, is 3 French Hens by Susan B. Anderson. If you just want little projects that make you smile, that you can give as gifts or you can keep around the house as little yarn pets, these hens are adorable, and I don't see why they can't be in blue. I thought maybe a hen that has a grey body and then maybe bright blue, what do you call the bit on the top and the wee tail? And then maybe the colourwork on the sides might be 2 shades of blue, and maybe the bottom is, yeah, well, there's so many options, but you know, hens don't have to be cream. Hens don't, I think you can have grey hens, you can have bright blue hens, you can have any hen colour that you like. They are adorable, they're really they're just fun. And sometimes you just need a fun little knit without too much of a commitment. They just use up little bits of yarn. A bit of joy in your life. So those are my ideas of what you can do with your yarn if you don't want to knit the pattern. So hopefully something in there sparks some interest for you. Hopefully you might just want to keep this as pet yarn for a while around the house, and one day something's gonna come forth and go, aha, that's what I should use this for. But whatever you choose to do with it, I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that the package brought a little bit of joy to your day. I hope that you're staying warm and well, and I will see you again. Ka kite.